Hi, I'm Severio from HoRNet Plugins, and today I'm here to show you HoRNet ThirtyOne, the latest plugin we developed. It's a 31 bands graphic equalizer with a spectrum analyzer. These two units in together are very helpful if you have to adjust the sound of your speakers, or you are a live mixer and you have to adjust the sound of your PA. And using the pink noise, it's a common technique to shape the sound of the speakers. But this special plugin here also has a nice feature that is called the Auto EQ, that automatically tries to remove the masking from your spectrum and allow each sound, each frequency, each band to be better heard and save you a lot of time to get a good sounding mix. In the first half of the plugin, we emulate a special hardware unit that is developed here in Italy, and it's a very famous spectrum analyzer, completely analog, and we recreated exactly the same feeling with the LED bars and with the same 20 dB octave filter that isolate every single band and show you the intensity. We added 3 more bands because the original unit has just 28, but we cover the full spectrum, and we also added the option to display 6 dB per LED, while the original unit is locked at just 2 options, 3 and 1 dB per LED. And the output of the we also added the peak indicator for each band, and this peak indicator, the output of this peak indicator is used by the Auto EQ algorithm to tweak the equalizer and give you the right balance for the frequency distribution. Right below the spectrum analyzer, we have our 31 bands of equalizer, and these are standard to 6 dB octave filters, and goes from negative 15 to 15 dBs of gain. Also, we have input and output, and the regular stuff you may find in our plugins. So I'll show you the guy here, and I'll explain you how to use the plugin and what exactly it does. So here we have the analyzer we were talking about. It's 31 bars, each with 12 dB, 12 LEDs, and you can choose the scale. Right now each dot is 6 dB. You can choose between 3, 2 and 1, the other options, if you want to have a finer display of the levels. The integration time, that is the time it takes to the bar to get to the steady level and to come back to 0. So if you choose 250 milliseconds, you are getting very fast response and shows you the actual peaks. While if you choose 1 second, you have a medium time response, and 4 seconds is more an average. You can also choose to display the left and right channels together, or the difference, showing you just the side part of the mass matrix, and allows you to see the frequency distribution of your stereo image. Most of the time you want to use L plus R. With this button here you enable the peak hold, and with this one here you reset the peak hold. With this one you disable the analyzer to save CPU. Keep in mind that even if the analyzer is disabled, only the display part is kept disabled, because you may want to use the output of the analyzer for the Auto EQ algorithm. So the spectrum analysis always run even if you disable the analyzer here. Right here we have the EQ with the faders, and each one of these faders can be adjusted as we spoke. A double click reset it to 0 dB. And this is a pretty regular EQ, but you have these controls here to reset it to 0 if you made some adjustment and you want just to reset it. The bypass button to disable the EQ processing. This time, if you press this button, the EQ is actually disabled, so it saves a lot of CPU. And these two auto EQ controls here. Auto EQ is an algorithm that, using the average level of the spectrum analyzer, evaluates each single band against the closest one and tries to adjust the gain so that no band is masked by the previous or the following, thus making the spectrum more equilibrated and better sounding. It's amazing how you can get, with a simple algorithm, you can get very interesting results. And you have two different modes of operation for the auto EQ. You have the static one and the continuous. The difference between static and continuous is that with a static analysis, every peak is used at its own position, and the equalizer is calculated depending on the peak level. With the continuous mode, each band is evaluated over time, so the equalization continually changes, and it's more suited for something you can control, like live stream, if you are in a live situation, or broadcasting, or anything else that you cannot know when it starts and when it will finish. It's interesting also in mastering operation, because you can have interesting results even with a continuous mode. With this button you will reset the internal states of the auto EQ, so the computing starts again, and with this knob here that is now disabled because auto EQ is off, you can adjust the amount of action that the auto EQ has. This is just a scaler that increase or decrease the amount of every single slide by this factor. 50% is an okay value that gives you interesting results, while 0% is no action at all, and 100% is the actual mathematically correct computation, but often is too extreme, and so we decided to give 50% as default option. Now I'll play one of the tracks I made some year ago, and I'll show you how the spectrum analyzer works. It's very smooth. It's interesting to see the bar moving, and I'll show you the auto EQ in action. Here's the track. So, as you have seen, we have all the bars moving here. Then these are the peaks of each bar. It shows you the maximum level of the spectrum in each band. And hovering, you probably have already noticed, hovering with the mouse above each band gives you the indication of the frequency and the maximum peak it has reached. So you see the level of each band here. We have now 6 dB per LED. If I change it to 3, you see just the crest here, and the scale here updates accordingly. It's negative 33 dB now. If I set 1 dB, we go to negative 11, and we don't have peaks that reach that high, so we don't see any white dot. We see just some with 2 dB per LED. I think the 3 and 6 options are the most useful for music, so I'll stick with this one. I don't want to, I prefer to run this plugin before the limiter when the levels are still low, so we have more freedom to modify the sound without having to worry about 0 dB reaching. Keep in mind that this plugin has 2 times of a sample inside, so it actually displays inter-sample peaks, and so it shows you how the real peak, how the way they are going to be reconstructed after the digital analog converter. And so it's better if you use it before your brick wall limiter to avoid producing peaks that the brick wall limiter would have limited anyway. So let's dig into the operation of the auto EQ, trying to see how this reference will change when it's engaged. First, I will use the static option. Since we already have some peak information, the auto EQ has been designed like this to prevent masking. As you can see, we have this peak here that has been reduced by 1.5 dBs, and we also have some other adjustment here where the track is lacking. It's to avoid having too many valleys and peaks that may sound weird and hollow. If you heard how the track sounded, it's a little bit thin and hollow. Let's see if this curve here fixes the issue. When I change it from the active status of bypass status of the EQ, you probably have heard how this auto EQ algorithm clean up almost everything and helped the bass to cut through the mix and the kick to be more controlled and overall have a nice finished sound, and it's exactly what it's meant to do. It's amazing how this kind of small adjustments here for each band makes such a difference. And if we reset the auto EQ and we trigger the track again, we will see a similar behavior for the EQ. Probably not every knob and not every slider will be in the same position, because we have some sort of adaptive algorithm that doesn't allow everything to be exactly equal every time, but the overall sound would be the same. And now I'll show you the continuous EQ and see how it works. So, you probably have seen how the sliders move themselves continuously, and this causes the sound to continuously adjust to always provide the best unmasking effect. As I speak, the sliders continuously moving to recover to the 0 position, because the sound changes and the slow hysteresis that each slider has make so that they are going to come back to the zero after a certain period of time. If this, I was saying at the beginning that this algorithm is linked to the integration time, so if I change a faster integration time, I will get a faster move from the equalizer, and I will tame exactly the frequency peaks instead of the overall frequency balance. This may be helpful if you have particular resonant issues. Let's see how it behaves now. On the opposite side, if I want to work on the average of the frequency distribution, I will use the longest integration time we have, that is 4 seconds, and so I will practically ignore the frequency peaks and work only on the overall distribution of frequencies. So it may be interesting to have one EQ after the other, one set to the fast operation and the other to the slow operation, to try to fix almost everything automatically. With this knob here, as I told you, you increase or decrease the effect option, the effect amount. So if I set it to 1, for example, 100%, and again to this faster speed here, you'll see the faders move much more. Most of the time this kind of effect is probably too much, but you can try it, so it may just be what you need and it may lead you to interesting results. So this is HoRNet 31. It's available right now on www.hornetplugins.com. You can try out the demo of the plugin before you buy it, so you can have a full evaluation. The only limitation in the demo is that every now and then the plugin will silence out, and you cannot save the parameters you set with your session. So every time you restore it, it will start in the default mode. But for the rest of the operation, it's fully functional, so you can evaluate the AutoEQ algorithm, and let us know if you have some suggestion, improvements, or anything you may come up with, and we are very interested in your opinion. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to write us.